This is not just the deepest place on Earth. It is a world so extreme, so alien, that even sound behaves differently here. Far below the Pacific Ocean, hidden inside the darkness of the Mariana Trench, underwater microphones captured something terrifying. A strange metallic cry echoing through the abyss. Scientists named it the Biotwang. No one knew what created it. Not a whale, not an earthquake, not any machine humanity had ever built. The sound was haunting, almost unnatural, like a message coming from another world. Since the 1990s, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has recorded multiple mysterious sounds rising from the deep ocean. Some were eventually explained, others still remain unsolved, and many of them came from waters near 11,000 meters deep, a place almost completely cut off from the surface world. For decades, these sounds became one of the coldest mysteries of the ocean. Ghostly voices, from a place humans were never meant to survive. To understand why this trench is so terrifying, we first need to understand the force that rules it: pressure. In 2023, Titan submersible imploded deep in the Atlantic Ocean near the wreck of the RMS Titanic. It was around 3,300 meters below the surface. At that depth, the ocean was crushing the vessel with thousands of pounds of pressure on every square inch. When the hull failed, the implosion happened faster than the human brain could process. The 5 people on board likely never even realized what happened. Now, imagine going more than 3 times deeper. At the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the pressure becomes almost impossible to understand. More than 1,000 times stronger than the air pressure at sea level, strong enough to crush steel, collapse submarines, and destroy almost anything built by humans. For a long time, scientists believed nothing could survive there. No light, near freezing temperatures, crushing pressure powerful enough to shatter bone. It seemed like the end of life itself. But the deeper humans explored, the more shocking the truth became. The Mariana Trench is not empty. It is alive. In the darkest depths of Earth, scientists discovered creatures that should not exist. Transparent animals, blind predators, giant single-celled organisms larger than human hands. Fish that survive with bodies specially adapted to pressure that would instantly kill surface life. And somehow, life here does not merely survive, it thrives. Which raises an even more disturbing question. If life can exist in one of the most hostile places on Earth, then what exactly is creating those terrifying sounds in the darkness below? To understand the Mariana Trench, we first have to understand where the trench actually begins. Most people hear that the Mariana Trench is nearly 11,000 meters deep, but that measurement starts from the surface of the ocean. The real trench does not even begin until around 5,000 meters below sea level. Everything above that is simply open ocean. The trench itself is like a giant scar in the Earth's crust, hidden beneath miles of water. Its deepest point is called the Challenger Deep, a place so remote and extreme that only about 22 humans in history have ever reached it. That is fewer people than those who have traveled to the moon, and the scale of this place is almost impossible to imagine. If you took Mount Everest, flipped it upside down, and dropped it into the trench. The peak would still not reach the bottom. There would still be thousands of feet of darkness below it. So, what would it actually take to reach the deepest place on Earth? To get there, you would have to descend through every layer of the ocean, and each layer feels less like Earth, and more like another planet. The journey begins in the sunlight zone, the upper world of the ocean. This layer stretches down to about 200 meters. It is the only part of the ocean where sunlight fully exists. This is the world humans know best. Coral reefs, sea turtles, dolphins, schools of bright fish moving through blue water. Almost all marine life familiar to humans lives here, and even this zone can already be dangerous. The deeper you go, the harder it becomes to survive. Pressure increases rapidly. Light begins to fade. The ocean slowly stops feeling alive. Then, below 200 meters, everything changes. You enter the twilight zone. This region stretches from 200 to 1,000 meters deep. Sunlight barely reaches here. The water becomes dark blue, then black. Shapes disappear into shadow, and the creatures living here begin to look unnatural. Huge eyes, transparent skin. Mouths filled with needle-like teeth. Animals that create their own light using bioluminescence. Some flash glowing patterns to communicate. Others use light as bait to lure prey closer in the darkness. At the bottom of this zone, the pressure becomes nearly 100 times greater than at the surface. No free diver could ever survive here. The human body was simply never designed for this depth. And this is only the second layer of the ocean. Next comes the dark zone, also called the midnight zone, from 1,000 meters down to 4,000 meters. Sunlight completely disappears. There is no sunrise here, no color, no horizon. Only endless black water. The temperature drops close to freezing. The pressure becomes powerful enough to crush most submarines. And yet somehow, life still exists. But life here no longer looks normal. Squids and octopuses become nearly transparent. Fish evolve massive jaws and glowing organs. Creatures drift through the darkness like living ghosts. And then there are the giants. Massive xenophyophores longer than blue whales. Jellyfish with glowing tentacles stretching through the void. Predators that survive in silence, hidden in the blackness. This is also the point where the ocean begins producing some of its strangest sounds. Clicks, low vibrations, unknown calls echoing through the deep. The deeper scientists explored, the more mysterious the ocean became. And terrifyingly, we are still nowhere near the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Below the dark zone lies the abyss zone, a region stretching from 4,000 to 6,000 meters deep. For most oceans on Earth, this is the seafloor itself, the end of the descent. But inside the Mariana Trench, this is only the beginning. The pressure here is more than 600 times stronger than at the surface. Every inch of your body would feel the crushing force of the ocean trying to collapse it inward. And this is where some of the strangest creatures on Earth begin to appear. Near the upper abyss, scientists sometimes encounter the giant phantom jellyfish, Stygiomedusa gigantea. A creature so rare that humans have seen it only around 100 times in recorded history. Its bell can grow over 1 meter wide, with ribbon-like arms stretching more than 10 meters long through the darkness. It looks less like an animal, and more like something floating through space. Unlike most jellyfish, it does not rely on painful stings. Instead, Those massive ribbon arms act like drifting traps. Small animals become tangled, then slowly pulled toward the mouth. And near the bottom of the abyss lives something even stranger. Not the famous giant squid, not the colossal squid. Those creatures cannot survive this deep. What scientists find here is far more unsettling. The bigfin squid, one of the most mysterious animals ever filmed. Its thin arms can stretch over 7 meters long, bending at unnatural angles as it drifts motionless in the darkness, almost like a puppet hanging underwater. Scientists still do not fully understand how it lives. We have never captured a healthy adult. Most of what humanity knows comes from blurry deep-sea footage and small juvenile specimens. Even today, the bigfin squid remains one of the least understood creatures in the ocean. Deep-sea gigantism affects smaller creatures too. Take the giant isopod, a distant relative of tiny garden pillbugs. On land, pillbugs fit on a fingertip. But in the abyss, evolution transforms them into armored scavengers nearly half a meter long. The deep ocean changes life itself. Bodies become softer, eyes grow larger, or disappear completely. Some animals glow, others become giant, but eventually, even gigantism reaches its limit, because below 6,000 meters begins the most extreme environment on Earth, the Hadal Zone. Named after Hades, the ancient Greek god of the underworld. This zone exists only inside deep ocean trenches like the Mariana Trench. Nowhere else on Earth. It stretches from 6,000 meters, all the way down to nearly 11,000. The pressure here is beyond human imagination, more than 1,000 times stronger than the pressure at sea level. Imagine the weight of a full-grown African elephant pressing down on every single square inch of your body. That is, the world creatures here must survive every second of their lives. You might expect this place to contain even larger monsters, gigantic predators hidden in the darkness. But the opposite happens. The deeper life descends into the trench, the smaller and stranger it becomes. Because in the deepest part of Earth's ocean, even giants cannot survive forever. So, what actually lives at the bottom of the Earth? The truth is far stranger and far quieter than most people imagine. There are no giant underwater kingdoms here, no endless armies of sea monsters. The deepest part of the ocean is mostly silent, cold, dark, and nearly empty. But somehow, life still survives. One of the most famous residents is the Mariana snailfish, the deepest fish ever discovered. And despite the name, it is not a snail at all. It is a small, pale fish with almost transparent skin. No scales, no hard armor. Its body looks soft and fragile, almost like jelly. In fact, if you brought one to the surface, its body would collapse under normal pressure. That softness is exactly what keeps it alive. Down here, hard skeletons can crack, rigid bodies can fail, but soft bodies bend instead of breaking. It is not a monster, not a giant predator, just a small survivor perfectly designed for one of the harshest places on Earth. And it can live deeper than 8,000 meters below the surface. Then there are the amphipods, tiny shrimp-like crustaceans crawling across the trench floor. These creatures survive even inside the Challenger Deep itself. Scientists discovered special chemicals and proteins inside their bodies that protect their cells from collapsing under extreme pressure. Without those adaptations, life here would simply fall apart. But one discovery shocked researchers even more. Some amphipods were found with plastic inside their bodies, tiny pieces of human waste, sitting nearly 11 kilometers beneath the ocean's surface. Even the deepest place on Earth has not escaped humanity. And then things become even stranger. Meet the xenophyophore, one of the weirdest life forms ever discovered. At first glance, they look like rocks or blobs resting on the seafloor, but they are alive, and unbelievably, each one is only a single cell. Some grow over 10 centimeters wide, making them among the largest single-celled organisms on the entire planet. In the darkness of the trench, these giant cells collect sand, mud, and minerals to build strange structures around themselves. Those structures then become tiny shelters for smaller organisms. So even in this barren underworld, life still creates ecosystems, not giant squid battles, not massive predators, just silent creatures desperately helping each other survive. Besides them, the trench is filled with worms, microbes, and scavengers slowly crawling across the mud. Most survive on something scientists call marine snow. Not real snow, a slow, endless rain of dead plankton, decaying animals, waste, and organic dust falling from the world above. That is the food chain of the Hadal Zone, waiting for scraps to drift down from another world. Life here is not about domination. It is not about becoming the strongest predator. It is simply about surviving one more day. And honestly, that is what makes the Hadal Zone so unsettling. The abyss above still contains giant creatures and terrifying hunters. But the deepest trench on Earth is too extreme even for monsters. So, where else does this nightmare environment exist? The Hadal Zone forms when massive tectonic plates crack the ocean floor apart, creating deep trenches in the Earth's crust. There are around 20 major trenches across the planet, mostly scattered throughout the Pacific Ocean. The most famous include the Tonga Trench, the Philippine Trench, and of course, the Mariana Trench. But if this place is so deadly, how do humans even know what exists down there? The answer is simple. We barely do. Almost everything humanity knows about the Hadal Zone comes from a handful of incredibly dangerous missions, some of the most difficult expeditions ever attempted. Most submarines cannot even approach these depths. Even powerful military submarines can usually only dive a few hundred meters safely. The Mariana Trench is not hundreds of meters deep. It is nearly 11,000. Machines built for this environment are not normal submarines anymore. They are basically tiny pressure-proof capsules designed to survive a crushing world. The first humans to ever reach the bottom were Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh. In 1960, they descended inside a submersible called the Trieste. Imagine sitting inside a cramped steel sphere barely large enough for 2 people, while descending almost 11 kilometers into total darkness. No sunlight, no rescue, no guarantee the hull would survive. And during the dive, one of the outer windows cracked under the pressure. At nearly 11,000 meters deep, even imagining that moment is terrifying. But somehow, they survived. They spent around 20 minutes at the bottom before beginning the slow rise back toward the surface. After that mission, humans did not return for over 50 years. And honestly, who could blame them? The next major descent came in 2012, when filmmaker James Cameron decided to dive there himself. The same man behind Titanic and Avatar. He piloted a one-man submersible called the Deep Sea Challenger. Unlike older submarines, it was built like a vertical torpedo covered in bright green armor, a machine created for one purpose only: go straight down into the abyss. James Cameron became the first person to reach the Challenger deep alone. Later, he described the bottom as completely alien, flat, silent, covered in fine gray mud. No giant monsters waiting in the darkness, just emptiness. And his observations match the science perfectly. Deep-sea gigantism ends here. Then, in 2019, explorer Victor Vescovo descended again using the DSV limiting factor. He reached nearly 10,928 meters deep, one of the deepest dives ever completed. But something disturbing connects almost every expedition into the trench: the sounds. Divers and researchers repeatedly reported hearing strange noises deep below the ocean. Metallic echoes, low vibrations, unidentified calls moving through the darkness. Even inside advanced submersibles, experienced explorers described feeling genuine fear. And in 2003, the Japanese robotic explorer Kaiko disappeared during a mission near the Mariana Trench after losing communication in rough conditions. Only fragments of the system were ever recovered. Meanwhile, James Cameron spent hours mapping the trench floor, collecting samples, and filming creatures never seen before. But perhaps the most disturbing thing he found at the deepest point on Earth was plastic waste, human trash resting at the bottom of the world. Today, most exploration no longer relies on humans descending into the trench directly. Instead, scientists use ROVs and deep-sea landers. Heavy robotic machines slowly dropped into the abyss. They sink for hours through total darkness before finally reaching the seafloor. These machines carry cameras, lights, sensors, bait traps, and robotic arms designed to collect samples. Their shells are made from thick titanium and pressure-resistant glass. Because if even one part fails, the entire vehicle implodes instantly. And despite all modern technology, deep-sea missions still fail surprisingly often. Yet almost every successful expedition discovers something new. A new species, a new behavior, a new mystery hidden in the dark. But one mystery still remains unsolved: those terrifying sounds echoing through the Mariana Trench.